Hello, Jak here, and I have a very long video for you today, and I hope you enjoy it, because it's going to be my theories on Jak 3, my theories on before the Precursor Legacy, and just a whole bunch of stuff, and it's going to be a long video, and it's going to be awesome. It's something that I've been thinking about for days now. I actually even had to study time all night last night. I stayed up all night last night studying time and paradoxes and all that just to get this right the way I wanted it to be. Okay, so let's start off with this. Here we go. Long years ago, far away in space, there was this planet, and on this planet there were these beings with great technology. We called them the Precursors. They were masters of eco and were doing experiments. An enemy arrived on their planet. We call them the Metalheads. The Precursors called them the Horrorquan. The Precursors lost this war. The Horrorquan and their leader destroyed their civilization. Completely destroyed their civilization, okay?
Eons ago, the Precursors waged a terrible war with the Horrorquan, those dark creatures you refer to as Metalheads. Driven by their dark leader, the Metalhead legions destroyed our great civilization, and now they swarm the universe unopposed, looking for the last relics of our power.
And wanting the Precursors' power. In this war, in their final effort, they failed their experiments with Dark Eco, creating the enemies of themselves. They called them the Dark Makers. All hope was lost, okay? All hope was lost. The Precursors took their ship, okay, with all the eco that they could get. This is a big-ass ship. They took it. It was a big fight to get out, alright? They took off, fleeing away in the hopes to find a new planet and hoping their enemies do not follow. Far away from their home planet, they found a new planet, and this is far away, and it's stable enough to make their new home. They drill into the planet, they cycle eco within and creating silos and terraform the planet and bringing life to the planet. As years went by, evolution did its thing, okay? Evolution did its thing. One day, there were these beings, humans with elvish ears, and the Precursors taught them everything they knew about eco. And these beings eventually mastered eco and became sages, okay? They may not, the Precursors may not have showed what they actually look like. And, you know, they may not have shown what they look like, and they could have vanished. As years went by, people knew of these gods long ago called Precursors, but as time went by, they forgot about them pretty much in a way. They, you know, and the myths get fluffed up or whatever, but they know the Precursors once existed. They just forgot about everything pretty much. And their people grew in strength, and they started making civilization and villages, and just time went by and by. One day, the prophet shows up out of the sky. The Precursors knew of this prophet and everything about him. It's their warrior, their hero. I'll explain this later. There was this man with a log on his head and a young boy. A man named Samos and a boy named Jak. Samos puts the Rift Rider where it should be, possibly explained by his older self. I don't know. There's so many little holes in there. I'm trying to fill it up. But maybe he put the Rift Gate right there where it should be because it was explained by Samos. Maybe Samos did a couple more explanations behind the scenes of things, but didn't exactly tell him everything, okay? So the two of them head to where they should build, or where they would build Samos's hut, and they meet new people along the way. Okay, eventually Samos finds love with a woman who had a daughter named Kira. She one day dies for some unknown reason, okay, I don't know, alright? There's so many holes. I'm just going to say that he found a woman and somehow she just dies. You can come up with the reason of why she dies. Whatever. Come up with your own theory on that. Alright? But Samos takes Kira in as his own. And she already looked up to him as a father anyway. It's been a while, you know. She knows him. He's kind of like this father figure. He's daddy, okay? And then eventually one day, Jak runs into a boy named Daxter and become great friends. And Daxter didn't exactly have a family. And he was mostly alone, okay? But he made great friends with Jak and always had a home with him. Alright, pretty much Samos took him in too eventually at one point. And there was Jak's 9th birthday. He runs into a Wumpy's nest, okay, and later cured by Samos. But 6 years later, when Jak and Daxter is 15 years old, they go against Samos's warning and head into Misty Island. And this is the beginning of the Precursor legacy that we know all about. We know that story. So I'm going to skip to the end of the first game and the beginning of Jak 2. Okay, here's where things get confusing, but Jak opens up the Rift Gate, and waiting on the other side of the Rift Gate is the Metalhead leader Core, who says, "You cannot hide from me, boy!" Meaning he knows about Jak. They flew into the Rift Gate, and the Metalhead leader follows with, only poking his head into the past. Jak gets captured, and the events of Jak 2 unfolds. Jak defeats Core and sends his younger self into the past, and grows up to become strong enough to defeat Core in the future, creating this bootstrap paradox / predestined paradox. Okay, now to talk about Core. Core sticks his head into the past in the beginning of Jak 2, right? Letting all these metalheads into Sandover Village, and the metalheads fight and destroy everything in the past. So between the start of Jak 2 and the ending of Jak 2, at some point Core shows up on the planet. Now I'm going to put up a little thing that I drew down to make sense. There's the circle, and the line in between is everything at the start of Jak 2, and he time travels, and this everything that happens in Jak 2, okay? But in between all that time when the metalheads are there, alright? So, Core shows up on the planet. He's this alien that used to be on the Precursor's old planet, okay? He chased down these Precursors. He wants to destroy everything, right? He wants to destroy everything they have. He wants their power. He notices that his metalhead army is already there, and it confuses him. And he shows up and he's just like, what? My army's already here? So he goes and looks for answers, fighting the city as well and whatnot, doing his thing. Come up with your own stuff, whatever. I don't know, he's doing his thing, right? Eventually running into the great warrior Mar, and he fights Mar, and also somewhere down the line learns of this precursor stone and this last precursor egg, right? And he wants to devour it. He hates precursors, he wants their power, he wants to devour this thing. But also he runs into, somewhere down the line, I don't know which happens before what or whatever, but somewhere down the line, he runs into Onin. And Onin, I don't know, somehow she just knows everything like a psychic, or has some way of talking with the precursors. Who knows? Come up with your own way of how she knows everything, alright? Maybe she did talk to the precursors, and somehow she's like their own way of making everything right, set in place, right? Whatever. Okay? So, let's see, where was I at? And, either way, she's very knowledgeable, and she obviously doesn't like Core, knowing who he is. But she tells Core about this boy named Jak, who has the ability to awaken the precursor egg and everything like that. And and he learns everything, right? And Core doesn't want this egg to be awakened. He wants to devour it, whatever. So Core at some point lets Caden know from Daxter, the Daxter game. He lets Caden know about this, and Caden will inform the Baron about Jak, so that way the Baron can find Jak and capture him and put him in the Dark Eco experiment, preventing Jak from awakening the stone. Then Core also, he sets all this up. Core sets all this up, and he waits at the last rift gate. Somehow he finds the last rift gate or whatever, and he waits there and waits for it to be open. When it finally opens, it's the beginning of Jak 2. And then it makes sense to Core that, oh, this is why my metalheads were here already on the planet when I got here, because I put them into the past myself. So it kind of makes sense to Core, you know. He doesn't think much of it. He's like, okay, that makes sense. All right. So, is that making sense so far to you? Or am I hurting your head? Or, you know, is it too stupid? Does it not make sense to you? Let me know in the comments what you think about that. But I think that was pretty cool and it makes sense to me. So, Jak defeats Core and Jak 2 ends. And then we have Jak 3. And the events of Jak 3 happen, and we all know that story and what happens there. But here comes my Jak 4 theory. So, at the end of Jak 3, we see Jak go into the ship and fly away with the precursors. But soon after, pretty much the same instant, Jak shows up behind Daxter, indicating that he time traveled. So, Jak goes back into time with the precursors and pretty much sets everything up for himself. So, when they time travel, they meet up with the precursors that first arrived on the planet and letting them know every single thing that will ever happen, explaining why they already knew about Jak when he showed up into the past and before he time traveled and everything. They already knew that, okay, we got this great warrior. This is our man. All right. So Jak helps them build the gun that shoots down the Darkmaker ship. All right. He helps them do that. And then they travel into the future where Jak goes into the last rift gate at the start of Jak 2. Jak, who is Mar, helps defend Sandover Village and everyone from the metalheads who Core left behind, and then begin building Haven City, right? Of course, Jak couldn't build the city by himself. There's no way, and people say because of that, there's no way he could be Mar. There's no way he could build all that by himself. But let's throw this in there. He had the precursors with him. He used the help of the precursors. And I would like to also throw this in. I would like to also think that Jak went to the sculptor for help as well. And in the Precursor Legacy Bible, it tells us that the sculptor married his muse. And when they kissed, the muse turned into a beautiful genie. So maybe the sculptor and the genie helped too, but I'm just throwing that in there. That's just whatever, right? Just something, just throw that in there. But Jak, with his light eco, he helps make Haven City without getting too old, but he definitely gets older, of course. The precursors made the last precursor egg and planned on hiding it for Jak's younger self, but Core shows up to the planet. He sees all these metalheads that are already there, and he finds out about Mar, and at some point, the precursor egg and everything, and he fights really hard to get that egg. And during these events, Mar, the ruler of Haven City, it's all finished pretty much, and he decides to build the railgun for his younger self, to use to get into the nest. And during all those events, Mar makes friends with Deimos, who is also his father, a bittersweet moment where Jak gets to be with his father even more and get to know his father even more. But of course, he can't really let Deimos know that, hey, you're my dad. Of course not. That would just ruin everything, right? So Mar eventually finishes the railgun. He makes his quote-unquote Tomb of Mar and hides the egg from Kor. He sets the Tomb of Mar up for Jak to go through it, go through the trials, and get the Precursor Stone, and it's hidden from Kor. Then he fakes his own death and vanishes, and the Precursors, with their own power, turns Jak back to being 18 years old and the same age as he was at the end of Jak 3. Bam. Boom. There it is. That's how that fucking shit happened in my head. In my way of everything, that's how that happened. And here's some more reasons of why I think Jak is definitely Mar. I mean, look at the side missions where you give, let's say, you give 4 Metalhead Skull Gems to that statue thing, and you go and complete a task. Well, when you complete that task and you do it successfully, some of them you will hear, "We're so glad that we have chosen you." And then there's another one that says, "You you are the great warrior." Okay? So that kind of sets all that up, right? And another thing that I want to throw in there is the amulet. Okay? So at the end of Jak 2, Jak defeats Kor, and they're about to send younger Jak into the past with Samos, right? Okay, so there's the amulet on baby Jak's neck that he takes off and gives to Jak, and then they go to the Naughty Otzel, and he's got the amulet in his hand, he squeezes it, and he's like, "I can't believe that boy was me." That amulet, alright? He gets it from his younger self. So I'm thinking that there's 2 of these amulets, alright? There's 2 of them. And at some point, they kick Jak out of the city and banish him to the wasteland, and loses all of his stuff, pretty much. And at some point, fucking Ashlyn shows up and gives him back the amulet and says, have you forgotten who you are? And he's like, "I'm done saving the world." So he gets the amulet back. He uses to get into the catacombs and travel back to Haven City, right? So then at the end of Jak 3, pretty much, Deimos gives him the other amulet and says, "Please find my son, Mar," and hands him the amulet. And then Jak's like, "Oh, father," And now Jak's got these 2 amulets. So at the end of Jak 3, and he goes back in time, and he does all this, and when he's doing all that, and he's got Haven City, he made friends with Deimos, and they're good friends. He gets to know his father even more, and he's like, "Here." He gives the amulet, 1 amulet to Deimos, and he gives 1 amulet to the son, to himself, his younger baby self, and he's like, "This is the symbol of our lineage. This is the symbol of the House of Mar. Here you go. This belongs to you. You were my best fucking friend." Something like that. So the amulet itself also has its own loop of time. Isn't that pretty cool, huh? The amulet also has its own circle of time where, young Jak gives it to him. Jak gets another one from his father, and then Jak goes back into time and gives it right back to them. It's like a big circle of time with just the amulets, right? That kind of proves, like, where'd those amulets show up from? It kind of just, in a way, brings more life into the fact that Jak is Mar. And I just thought that was cool. Okay, and we're getting pretty far into this video, but I'd like to end it off with this. There's actually a Jak 5 in my mind. It sets after Jak X, and at some point, because in the Jak and Daxter Precursor Legacy Bible, it goes to show that Maya, with the dark Ika powers that she had, was able to stay young right? So for Jak 5, the story would be, and if you want to hear this, I'll come up with my own story, I guess. In Jak 5, Gol and Maya show back up. Ta-da! Another Jak game. But that concludes my video. If you like it, leave a like, drop a comment, tell me what you think about it. And yeah, I got more videos coming up. I have one on that Jak and Daxter remake. Come to find out, I got more information. I've been talking to this dude on email, and I'm going to get back to him some more so I can make that video. But also, I'm going to do a review on The Last of Us 2. It's going to be full of spoilers, so if you don't want to see spoilers, don't watch it. And yeah, I'm going to have a review. I'm going to branch out to different games. I'm going to put out a review for The Last of Us 2. Anyway, thank you for watching. Drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll see you next time. Peace. P.S. Side note, I forgot to mention this, so I'm going to put this at the end of the video as a cool little thing. If you watch the whole video, you get to hear this. The precursor egg, the last precursor egg, actually turns out, because you see at the end of Jak 2, that entity flies into the rift gate after Samos and Jak, right? My little theory is that that entity, that precursor egg, that entity inside that precursor egg was Daxter. And he goes into the past and somehow he forgets who he was, and he's this boy at the same age of Jak. He just kind of forgets, but it would kind of make sense why when he falls into the dark eco, he pops out as a precursor, right? Kind of makes sense. So maybe that last egg was Daxter. There you go. If you've seen this, you hear this, you made it to the end of the video, thank you. Let me know what you think on that too. Peace out.